Brian Barrett checking in.
Okay, we're muted.
Hey, Brian, can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear. How y'all doing?
Doing good. You are too. We're gonna get started in just a few minutes here. I know it's great. Thank you. Today, it's gonna be ample footage. Well, again, it's like this. So kind of the report. I wound up reading the play this crack. I'm just getting involved.
Hey, Jacob,
Yes.
can you tell me who's all in the at the meeting? Not so much the audience, but I know you and Robert's there. I can hear Robert. Julia, are you there?
Yes, Julia's here, so is Ron and Amy from Level is here. So we've got everything in order in that regard.
Wipe his face now.
They're asking if we have a door stop back there, so they can keep the doors open in any way, shape or form.
Should be one on the sill outside.
Should be one where?
It should be like on the sill next to, like on the, toward the counter, like on the glass.
Yeah, I was turning it off.
No. Or in the round. It's all recorded.
Complicated by half.
There's one back there. Right. Today we go. Today. Yeah. I'm gonna say. Fine. The representative.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So 2 quick housekeeping items. First, it is so wonderful to see this room and so many faces. Welcome to the building if you've never been here before. Second thing, we're testing a new system this meeting. It's our wonderful owl right here. The way that works is as you speak and make noise, you'll see that the camera shifts over there. So we just ask that during the proceedings, you keep quiet so whomever is speaking at that time can be heard and is focused on by the owl. Second, just so you know, we're waiting on our stenographer, Donna Kenderdine. We're going to try and give her another 5 minutes or so before we get started. So I thank you all for your patience, and we'll get started as soon as we can.
I'm gonna go and sit down.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We've been here.
Yeah, I was in trial at the courthouse till 5:30. Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Look familiar. I'm sorry, Mitch, what's your last name? Warrior.
Yes.
Yep, I'm set.
Good evening, it is 6:05 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the
The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Members present include myself, Chairman Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Lovenheim, Supervisor Brian Barrett via Zoom, Township Manager Julia Heiliger, Solicitor Ron Karasak, and our engineer this evening, Amy Montgomery from Level Engineers. For announcements, later on this evening, we will consider an additional item to the agenda pursuant to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law. First order of business is the consideration of the minutes from the January 3rd reorganizational meeting and regular business meeting. I would entertain a motion to table those minutes as we do not yet have them completed.
I'll make a motion to table the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Barrett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next, and I believe the main event here is the public hearing from Orchard BJK and the Scott petition to rezone select parcels from R1 to ED. I believe many of you are here for that reason. Before I turn it over to our solicitor to conduct the introductory portion of the hearing, I want to be clear that this evening's consideration is not for a warehouse. It is for their petition to consider rezoning the district. So if the petition were to be approved, it would be required of them to file a separate land development plan, which is its own proceeding. So there would be a second set of hearings, but we do not yet know if that will be approved. That will be determined this evening. Without further ado, I will turn it over to our solicitor, Ron Karasak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. This is a continued hearing from the hearing that was initially held on December 14, 2022. At that time, the hearing for this matter was opened. The township introduced its exhibits, and then the applicant requested that the matter be rescheduled so that it's they, because there's more than one applicant, would have the opportunity to review recent review letters that had come in with respect to the project. Now, understand that this is unlike a hearing in which there is a conditional use application, which is decided by the supervisors, or a variance, which is decided by the zoning hearing board, or matters such as those. This is a legislative hearing in which the individuals involved are requesting their legislature, which is basically the board, to make a change to the law. That happens every day. It's nothing that's improper, and it's very routine, although you may not be in favor of what the change is being requested, and that's certainly understood. Understand that's what's being done. And this is asking that there are, I believe, 5 or 6 additional properties to be added to the economic development zoning district. In that regard, to follow up on the comments made by the chair, if someone wants to put a warehouse in the economic development district, they have to come before the board again and now have a formal judicial hearing as a conditional use in order to be able to do that. It is not a permitted use. If you want to put in a mixed building, an incentivized option, things like that, those are permitted. Your house is not a permitted use in this district, and there has to be a formal hearing held to determine whether or not that could go forward. So, following up upon those comments, keep that in mind. This is not a hearing to determine whether there should be a warehouse, a mixed use, a hotel, a motel. It's a hearing to determine whether or not 5 or 6, and the applicant will be clear on that, additional properties should be added to the economic development district. And the way we will proceed is I will have the applicant through their attorney and their witness present their case sort of in a quasi-judicial fashion, where we will have a witness called up to a witness chair, which we'll put here somewhere, and have questions asked of that person. And then, of course, the supervisors could also ask questions. In this particular matter, again, since it's legislative, it's not necessarily a case in which there are party individuals, so the crowd may not necessarily ask questions, but you certainly can make comment as the meeting, usually at the end of the meeting, but sometimes, depending upon what's being said, comment at a certain time makes more sense. So that being said, let's put a chair up here for the witness, unless we put him right over there in the corner by you.
Yeah, he can just sit at maybe right at the end of the table here and face me. I think that'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be referring forward.
Yeah, that'll be
Okay,
fine.
well, that probably makes more sense than the standard.
Oh, wow. Good, oh, yeah. Yeah.
I may stand or.
All right, so the way we'll proceed is Attorney Ralph Patercia is here on behalf of the applicant. He can then proceed to call his witnesses and make his presentation here. Understand, again, this is a public hearing, which is basically a public meeting, but it's meant to inform the public as to what a particular project is. So it's a public meeting, but it has that additional twist. That is to inform the, in fact, is before the board for consideration. So that being said, Mr. Patercia, you're on.
Thank you. The board and the public, Mr. Karasak has mentioned this is a legislative proceeding. We'll try to be succinct in the presentation. These zoning matters, you know, first day of property law, a long time ago when I was in law school, when we got to the zoning chapter, the professor said zoning brings out the best and the worst in everything. And there is some truth to that. So these types of matters never come without controversy, and they never come in a manner where everybody's happy. Well, we will, during this presentation, certainly respect the opinions of those that are here to appear this evening. We ask the board to keep an open mind as you seek to make judgment in your best discretion. We recognize that this is a matter of legislative prerogative, not necessarily a matter of right. That being said, I want to simply open by introducing who I represent. I represent Russell and Craig Scott. They are in the audience this evening, both here. They are property owners and residents of your community. I represent M Manor Holdings LP, which is a company that is a property owner and taxpayer in your community. Michael Byrne is a representative of M Manor. Both the Scott property and the M Manor property are subject to the zoning map amendment change in question. I represent Orchard BJK Company LLC, the principal of which is Mr. John Herman. He is a real estate professional and a developer who is under contract to purchase both the Scott property and the M Manor Holding property, and is joining with them, seeking to have the zoning ordinance amended so that Mr. Herman can then proceed to make application for a warehouse use on the property. The petition itself proposes merely a change in the map and an extension of the zoning district. There are no other language changes. There are no definition changes being requested. If in fact the supervisors find the wisdom of extending this zone further back from where it now exists to encompass the properties that are being suggested to be rezoned, the applicant's idea of, Mr. Herman's idea of what he'd like to do with this property will be a permitted use subject to land development. Zoning will not be involved, land development will. And the details of the project will then be brought forward to the Board of Supervisors and to the members of the public to take issue with what is being proposed. Now, the subject property includes, in addition to the property owned by the Scotts and property owned by M Manor, it includes two other small parcels, one owned by Polly Scott and one owned by Michelle Crompton. Polly Scott, although not necessary for a property owner whose property is sought to be rezoned to consent, she has nevertheless given her consent, and that consent is in writing. I'll present that to the board. Michelle Crompton is here this evening, and she's indicated to me that she is not opposed to the zoning amendment. And to that extent, we suggest that she consents as well. So, again, we'll respect each other as we make this presentation. Not everybody's going to be happy with the decisions the supervisors are going to be asked to make. That's a given. But we're nevertheless hope that you keep an open mind to what we're about to present in the exercise of your sound judgment. With that, we'd like to call Mr. John Tay of Langen Engineering.
Good evening. Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is John Cote from Langen Engineering and Environmental Services. That's when it's spelled COTE. So what I'll do is I'll put up a series of boards to orientate everybody for where we're talking about. But don't mind, I'm actually putting this slide.
A little bit off to the
Can you
side.
come up a little? Thank you. So I realize that orientation over here, you can't see it, I'll try and adjust as we go along. So what's up on the board right now is the overall.
It's okay.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
briefly, since for those of us who work with you, know who you are and what you do, let the public have a little idea of your background and your involvement with property development in this scheme.
Sure, absolutely. Again, John Cote from Langen Engineering and Environmental Services. I'm a site
Sir.
civil engineer.
Please speak up.
Slow down a little bit.
Can't hear you. I'm a site development engineer. I'm a site civil engineer. I'm licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. I've been before this board under various years. I'm the engineer of record for the project down the road that's being built right now, Smithfield Gateway, the medical office building that's being constructed there, as well as what was formerly referred to as the Pocono Medical Center Office Center along 447. That's now the Lehigh Valley Health Network facilities. So I've been in the community for about 28 years, going back to days of different properties throughout the stretch. I can mention names of the prior developers and all that, but the idea being I've been around this area, working in this area specifically on different tracks within the area on 437, 209, and Business 209. And for the purpose of, in terms of what I do, we do the site civil design, permitting, and then construction documents for projects to move them forward into the market. So
Thank you.
So what I'm referring to here in terms of the property, this is the overall zoning map. Sorry, I'm going to slow down. Zoning map for the township. What we've done is we've overlaid on the township's map the properties that are commonly referred to as Mountain Manor. The actual area is the tract that is just to the north side of 209, Business 209, bounded on the west, southwest by Craig's Meadow Road, and on north, split by Marshall Street Road. And the tract basically is adjacent to the corridor on 209. What you'll see on this map is a series of red parcels that are identified on Route 209, 447, and Business 209 corridors. And those are the ED zones that exist there today.
John, I interrupt you for a moment. Young lady, man over there, can you see the map? Because if you can't, you're welcome to bring your chairs up here.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, it's such a wide range, I didn't know.
You okay? Okay, so you're welcome to come up here and again, stands, sit, whatever, and see what's going on.
I'm closing in on it.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, projecting my voice has always been a challenge. So the point I'm trying to point out here is that the corridor, the commercial corridors, your Route 209, Business 209, 447, are predominantly where your ED zone has been adopted throughout that stretch to encourage, I assume, economic development along those stretches. This portion is the last piece of this stretch here that's not connected to the ED zone along Route 209, Business 209, referring to it. So with that in mind and that orientation, I'll refer now to the specific parcels. So in total, Mr. Carrick's point earlier, there's a total of 10 parcels involved in the ED transition to the ED zone. I'll start with everything that is west of Marshall Street Road and north of Business 209. So the series of the 7 parcels that are identified on this plan are basically the predominant southern end of the Mountain Manor tract. The parcels stretch from a connection on Craig Meadow Road up along Marshall Street Road and then connect down to Route 2, this is 209. In that parcel is Michelle Compton's tract, which is a small parcel adjacent to two other parcels that are in the zone and adjacent to business 209. This area here constitutes the predominant portion of the tract is overall 144 acres worth of property. 120 is the tract that was referred to earlier as the Scott's property, and the M Manor property portion just north of that is the 24 acres that basically encompass everything you see here hatched in red. So this represents more or less everything to the west of Marshall Street Road.
John, what's the total acreage?
So 144 west of the Marshall Street Road, and I'm going to talk about the east side being another 19 acres on top of that. So keeping in mind, that's the left half of the west side to the Marshall Street Road. What's on the drawing now, this next exhibit B3, the prior exhibit B2, is a hatched area showing just parallel running along Marshall Street Road on the east side of Marshall Street Road, and represents really in the big picture, this is a sliver of property that actually is the combined with the tract across the way as one property, but it happens to have Marshall Street Road cut through it. So they're not actually two parcels in the tax maps as one. So what we did is we just showed it separately because Marshall Street Road bisects it. So this is a total of 19 plus acres on this portion of the site. And then adjacent to that, there's an unhatched area here that's also part of the Scott's overall property that we'll refer to. It's basically another 90 acres that is not hatched, not intended to be put into the ED zone. And Mr. Scott will refer to that in his second word for the intent of that particular portion of property. Within this side, the parcels that are also here, there's the Holly Scott parcels that refer to Mr. Turgeon regarding her component. There's two parcels there that are within this hatched area. So these three parcels, the parcels on the other side of the road are all parcels intended or being requested to be put into that ED zone. And again, basically looking at this piece here as being a part of really what was the other tract, the tract on the west side of Marshall Street Road, under one parcel. What I can do now is I can refer to, if you like, a little bit more. I can go to okay. So as
We did make clear for the benefit of the record and the public how the property is considered.
right, the property right now is zoned R1. And the property has been before this board under various design scenarios. You may be familiar with what was referred to previously as a planned residential development that was proposed by a prior developer that got conditional use approval for the property. That tract was around just under 1,000 residential units, about 65,000 square feet of retail, and then office and other components that were part of that mixed use development. And that's what basically encompassed the majority of the property beyond even what we're asking to be rezoned here. It was basically the entire 400 plus acres of the overall property that Scott's had represented at that time for that application.
And Mr. Cote, you had experience with that prior project.
Right. We were the traffic engineers and park design engineers for the project. We did actually the traffic for this particular corridor as well as Route 209 and 447 under that engagement.
And that project, fair to say, was preliminarily plan approved
Yes,
and currently has the approvals.
for historical context, yes, that's okay. So I can refer to that a little bit further as we go along, just for comparison.
Yes, and take us now to the conditional code.
So we put together a concept. Again, just keep in mind it's a concept. For the purpose of, what the property could yield relative to its overall size and the ability to look at how it would interact with the adjacent roads and the highway. And this is a warehouse, distribution center type warehouse shown, basically more or less oriented east-west. It has parking fields provided at both ends, an access point out to Route 209. This access point will be subject to DOT. So right now we're showing it on our property, but the likelihood is that access will be somewhere along Route 209. But the idea behind this plan was basically to focus the development back behind, 209 up, parcel was separated from 209 by other tracks. The overall parcel itself encompasses basically 120 acres worth of land here. There'd be elements of stormwater management and other components of the infrastructure associated with it. The idea here would be that all the truck traffic associated with it and the employee traffic would focus out to a 209 intersection, be a signalized intersection, again, subject to DOT's approval, their standards in terms of what would need to be required. The site itself, in this particular case, this is a 1 million square foot warehouse. It's showing about 1,144 parking spaces. And the idea behind it, again, this is basically a layout that connects us to 209 and allows the site, this particular development to be set back from 209 based on where we're at. So this is just, again, a concept, but the idea is a test fit. And Mr. Herman's, looking at what the possibility of with the track and be subject to all the different approvals that were just discussed earlier, in addition to the county's approval, the conservation district's approval, the DEP's approval. So what we see here, again, is just conceptual, to get an order of magnitude of what can be done with the property. So representing that. So the discussion a moment ago, I want to flip back to basically what was previously proposed on this site. In the past, the development was looked at in the mixed use center. So I brought up basically a prior concept, or not concept plan, basically a rendering of the old plan. And this basically shows the layout of what was previously proposed on the overall track, including not only what we're talking about along the portion, the 120 acres or 144 total acres we were talking about before, but the entire 400 acres. And the east side of Marshall Street Road is being developed as well as the north end of the property. So this site was a site with about, again, it was like 991 residential units, and get back to the numbers of the retail office, 65,000 square foot of retail, about 100,000+ square foot of office, and then other uses throughout the site. So one of the things I think a lot of people come here, if I gather, from a concern point of view, is what's the nature of the traffic associated with a project like this? You have a warehouse versus when you see a residential type development. So to kind of give you just a quick order of magnitude, the daily trips of a site like this warehouse would be in the range around 1,700 cars a day, the daily count. The daily traffic associated with this would be 14,000+ cars a day in the area. So you're looking at different orders of magnitude between residential, multi-use residential and commercial versus the warehouse. So there's a lot of different things that people want to understand about traffic, and I'll just do a little bit just to kind of give the order of magnitude that people are looking at as far as issues. The primary issue is when you look at the peak times, you have peak AM and peak PM times that people are concerned about, what happens during that time in the morning when I'm trying to get through, that time of the evening I'm trying to come back, depending on what your commute is, where you're trying to traverse. The difference of a warehouse in terms of its actual peak AM and PM type of traffic compared to a mixed use development like this is the orders of magnitude is roughly about a quarter of what you would get volume wise on the road, looking at a warehouse versus this type of mixed use. So I realize most people don't recognize that, because what a lot of people don't think about is warehouses over the course of a day. It's not over these two peak, their peak times are not your peak times when you're trying to traverse the road and be, go through way. So the idea behind it, I don't know how the questions will be answered, so I apologize. I'm gonna let Mr. Harris back.
You're not mentioning tractor trailer.
No. Okay.
You have an opportunity to speak and question.
But I would like to have any.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
We're gonna entertain that now.
Excuse me, can you hear us on Zoom? Because we cannot see the presentation. And it's absolutely intelligible to us.
Orientation wise, the only way I can do it is to put it in front of the owl at some point. To find a place where possibly you can see it, on the board. But again, looking at the size of this image here, I'm not sure what's true.
The documents are made available on the website.
Put it back behind you, see where that space is behind you. The window? By the window? Again, that doesn't have to be on the screen. You want to try that?
So I realize the question was not meant to be asked during this session, but I'll clarify. I am talking about total vehicle. I'm talking about total vehicle trips, include both trucks and cars. When I mentioned the numbers.
And just so the audience is aware, the stenographer can't take down to people talking and not knowing who they are, et cetera. So that's why we ask that everyone wait until their turn to take their name and they're welcome to speak. Let's see if that's any better.
So. What I'll do for the audience that's on the Zoom call, I'm gonna just really quickly recap what I said a moment ago relative to the two tracks or two portions of the property. So. For the zoning map, I think that's okay. I think I'll go with that there. Okay. So just quickly again, and I don't know orientation wise, whether other people in the back will be able to see this better, but this first board exhibit B2 represents the bulk of the property that involved north of Business of Marshall Street Road, east of Craig Meadow Road, showing the areas that are being requested to be rezoned to the ED zone. And that's roughly about 144 acres. If you're looking at the map, it's basically the exhibits that have been provided to the township have the area hatched in red.
What do you mean by tract?
The overall tract is a combination of 10 parcels. There are tracts that are, I tract, meaning parcels that are combined together for this exercise, but they're individual parcels owned by the owners that are represented here tonight. So portions of land east of Marshall Creek Road are basically, I'll call it a sliver for the discussion. It's around 19 acres on the east side of Marshall Creek Road that runs parallel to the road. And then there's a portion that's unhatched here that's represented by the same ownership. That portion will be discussed a little bit further in the hearing. That 19 acres on this side, there's no proposed development from our side of it in terms of the intent. There's other opportunities what to be done with that. But the prominent conversation tonight is about the main track. And in the main track, what I was putting up on the screen before on the board was a concept plan that represents a warehouse showing its development along the east-west axis of the overall property. There's areas designated northwest, southeast, and along the quarter, which portion of it of the south and the south that are for stormwater management. The idea would be that this site would be supported by a primary access connection point at Route 209, Business 209. And ultimately, this is the kind of a pet fit for the property, right? With the idea of the ED zone being the adopted ordinance for that scenario. For comparison purposes, because I was, asked to look at people questioned a warehouse, the traffic associated with the warehouse. This plan that has approval on the property is a plan that was previously, again, proposed by a prior developer. That property mixed use in the order of magnitude of 991 units of residential, 65,000 square foot of office, opportunity of retail, about 100,000 plus of office, and then various other elements within it in terms of the total mixed use community plan residential development. What I was trying to illustrate was that when people talk about total vehicles on the road, this has a generation, and when I talk about generation, I'm talking about the Institute of Traffic Engineering's standards for how do you determine traffic generated by a use. You look at the different uses, whether it's retail, office, warehouse, whatever it might be, and then you generate numbers based on the square footages of the number of units. So the numbers I was referring to earlier, in terms of to clarify, the total vehicle trips for a development like this is over 14,000 vehicles a day traversing the network of roadway around the site. When you look at a warehouse, and again, understanding the same idea that in a given day's time frame, this would be 1,700 or so plus minus trips a day relative to this size warehouse. The idea behind that is to understand where are those trips occurring, when, time-wise. So this design would only permit trucks to come out to Route Business 209. The only purpose of connections for the Craig's Meadow Road and Marshall Creek Road are either for passenger vehicles or for emergency vehicles, emergency ambulances, fire could also use that route. And the idea behind this is that this generation of traffic occurs over the course of an entire day. It's not the AM peak and the PM peak that you see for your purposes of rush hour in the morning and rush hour at night. They're a quarter of the volume of traffic compared to the residential mixed-use development I was referring to earlier. Now, I don't want to, I know there's a lot of questions about that, but the purpose behind that is just to give you some order of magnitude. People think warehouse is going to generate volumes of traffic well beyond anything they can think of other uses, and that's not the case. The opposite in this particular case. So when you look at it from a comparison point of view, the idea behind it would be this use based on its connection, trucks coming out of business 209, passenger vehicles also using business 209, with options to use French Meadow Road and Marshall Street Road, no trucks on those two roads. And from a development point of view, it's got to be proved through all the different layers that were discussed earlier. Not only local, but county, state, and the state levels, multiple levels in terms of DEP, as well as the PennDOT as well.
John, you're an engineer. You're usually very precise. You keep using the word warehouse. What do you define as a warehouse?
So just if you want to use the term a warehouse as a distribution center, in terms
That's a
of
different thing, isn't it?
no, it's actually a subset of a warehouse. So there's a range of different uses. So what we're representing
I'm
here.
just asking, what's your,
I'm giving you my.
an engineer, what's your definition?
Yeah, so a distribution warehouse facility that has a combination of automated and labor-based operations within it to manage materials that come into the building and then go back out.
Okay,
Think
thanks.
of your common everyday practice, when you're ordering something online, you click, for a particular object, you're asking for something, you're purchasing something that typically is going through and being processed by a distribution center.
Thank you. No, that's good. I'm glad you clarified that. Okay.
So presentation wise, I think that's the heart of it.
Mr. Cote, we know that there are residents who live near or access Craig's Meadow Road and perhaps even Marshall Street Road as well, that will have concerns about everyday traffic. And so, although we're not in a planning stage with a project in land development, how can those concerns be handled if and when you get to that point in terms of directing traffic?
Sure. So the primary function would be the DOT process in terms of how we distribute traffic. The idea behind the layout is to support traffic going to 209, business 209, as the primary feed. So that's one element that you'll be looking for in a land development process, and the access component of the DOT to confirm that that's what's happening. Looking at other components of emergency access off of the side roads is a safety related issue that I think is a primary need. But the primary goal of the traffic flow from here is to use business 209. Now I can go back a little bit in history if people would like about. So when the original development that was proposed here back in the day was up and running, considering to be built and being, approved by the board, the DOT had an issue with the bypass. The bypass ran out of money to be able to complete the bypass. So one of the things the DOT reached out to was the business community to find out what was going on in the area. There was a recognition that the DOT's project had inflated the background traffic. They kept every year showing increases in traffic, but the development never occurred in the region to justify that particular increase. And they basically were building a roadway that was much bigger than the actual traffic that they thought was being generated over the years, making it happen. So the DOT actually took traffic studies that we had prepared for the region. We did a business 209, 447, Route 209, overall traffic study. They actually, when they redid the bypass, they utilized those numbers and put this project in build condition is a background traffic of that bypass. So what's built today actually has the background numbers from the original proposal project that was on the books at the time. So that's just a piece of, I'll say, history there relative to how when the bypass had to be put to a project that could be built based on the money available, they based it on that background data.
Address, if you would, the extent to which development of this nature will be visible to the residents and passerby.
So there's two components of the visibility. If you were driving through here, there's actually a grade change that makes its way through the site. There's a physical ridge line that occurred.
For the record, driving
Driving on business 209, I apologize, heading what would be considered south on business 209. This site, this is set back from 209. I could measure here, but off the top of my head, I don't know if it's roughly about 800, 900 feet back from business 209. The idea behind this would be that you have, not only the physical ground itself as a barrier from visualizing or seeing the warehouse, but also you, and I would expect the board here will also ask for buffering and plantings to also assist in that particular layout.
And what's the height of the warehouse building, that's permitted in the ED zone?
The height required would be around 40 feet permitted, and then the market rate is, I think, the market's anywhere between 40 to 45 feet in its general size.
And how about visibility from the two roads, Craig Meadow and Marshall's Creek?
Yeah, they would be set back from the two roads approximately 400 to 500 feet based on the layouts that are here. And then at the same time, again, these areas here would be used for screening that particular area. And the areas adjacent to Craig Meadow Road, and the areas adjacent to Marshall Creek Road, the gapping between there is used for screening.
Fair to say that it's subject to buffering development in that area in terms of the topography, buildings will be visible regardless of what's built there.
Yeah.
In terms of your experience with the traffic planning that went into the prior project and your ability to project the traffic planning for a proposed project where this zoning amendment to be adopted, can you tell us whether the artery roads in fact can handle the traffic that this project as proposed would generate?
Yeah, the primary access to hopefully end up on Route 209 again carries that background traffic. The area for business 209 would require off-site improvements, lane widening, accel, decel lanes onto the roadway to permit this connection to what would basically be a fully signalized intersection.
And the roundabout handle the traffic that would be generated from a project?
The roundabout was actually designed with the higher level of traffic that was previously proposed in the prior development. So this would be less traffic relative to the DOT project.
Yeah, I'm sorry, DOT
Relative
project.
to the project.
May I interrupt for one moment? I don't mean to tell you how to present your case with the surgeon by any means, but this is almost like the conditional use hearing of the warehouse. That's not what we're here for. We're here simply to determine whether or not the board wants to add these parcels to the economic development district. We can be here with 50 concept plans, hotels, motels, warehouses, mixed use, incentivized options. It's not what we're here to do. We're simply here to advise the board and the public as to what you are requesting to be done in this matter. And I understand that this is a concept plan, not necessarily what you are going to do, but we may be sort of bit far beyond what tonight's hearing is, as opposed to a conditional use hearing later on a warehouse or distribution center that may be, because we don't even know if that's proposed yet.
Point taken, Mr. Harris. Same token.
Guys, thank you.
By the same token, we like some transparency. We recognize that this application sought to increase the extent of the ED zone, will invite development. That's the purpose. We're not trying to, we should be completely transparent about that. I'm open, pay up the questions if the board has questions.
Robert, do you have any questions?
I have no question. See if Brian
Yeah,
can hear and see if he.
Brian, do you have any question for Mr. Kotek?
Only that we mentioned the roundabout, and then traffic would, their traffic would be routed towards Route 80. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know that there's some restrictions on some of the bridges on that road
Yeah, any type of truck routing would be subject to PennDOT's regulations in terms of the route that they take. So from a truck, route point of view, they have to honor any of the states or, for that matter, local or county restrictions on their routes.
Okay, I understand that, but if they cannot do that or comply with those restrictions, do you have an alternate route, or do they have an alternate route in mind?
Again, the route would have to be based on only where it's allowable to go. So I'm not saying from a route point of view, they would have to pick the route that's permittable. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowed to do it, period. So from that point of view, if you're looking at, I can't tell you what specific element you're referring to in terms of the restriction. I feel like I'm talking, I apologize, I'm talking to the ceiling.
Several of the bridges on 209 have restrictions, weight restrictions on them. And we've run into it before. And you may have, I would look into that before I go too much further.
Yeah,
Just as a point of information, and what Brian is talking about is, there will be a plan to replace a small bridge on Hollow Road. And the school buses that use Hollow Road have to make a detour onto Milford Road, going down to the Weiss Market, making the turn, then coming back on Independence Road, because the bridges on 209 are not, are not reinforced enough for the weight of a school bus.
They're not rated. They're not rated.
So that may be what Brian is talking about, but it's a real concern.
Yes. If there are no other questions of Mr. Cote, we offer next week.
Okay. Yeah, we'll save the comment for the end. Everyone can hear everything and then make.
correct.
I have a question. Is now the time for it?
We're gonna have public comment after the presentation's been made, but we will certainly make sure you're heard. Thank you.
I'm gonna leave the board up to the east of.
Mr. Albert Murray Jr. is assisting in counsel to Russell Scott and his brother Craig Scott, and he wants to present Mr. Scott as a witness. Hey, darling, can I do it from here? You need me to.
Sure. I guess Mr. Scott wants to kind of take the same position.
The microphone will pick up everybody from an 18-foot radius, so there's fine.
Blessings to everyone. My name is Albert Murray. Yes, I am unfortunately an attorney. I've just to say this, I'm a kind of assisting Ralph. Ralph is on his own. He represents the potential buyer. I represent Russ and Craig. In the event that the supervisors expand the ED zone and do all that, and then what I will do when Russ and Craig then decide to do a deal, a formal deal with Mr. Herman, I will help them do that. So basically, I'm just here just in case. If it's denied, then I'm out. If it's granted, then I'm going to help Russ and Craig. I might just mention that, I've been in the Poconos since I was 5 years old. From the standpoint that my family used to own the Hillside Inn, which is located in East Stroudsburg. And I was a lawyer, I'm still a lawyer here. I was a public defender here. I was a assistant district attorney here. And then in 1979, I became a United States attorney for the Department of Justice. And I worked out of Harrisburg, Scranton, and all over. And I left in 1988. I'm gonna get to the point there. I left in 1988, and because we built a new Hillside Inn, which ultimately I shut down in 2009, but I sold it to Pyramid Healthcare, you know where that is in East Stroudsburg. And now they own it. My mother and father were basically owned it, and my father was a judge of criminal court. But what's more important, I remember when 209 was Ho Chi Minh Trail. You know, it was like, what? There were so many cars and trucks up and down, and unfortunately that all got changed. And I personally, please nobody go to my house and beat me up and hurt me. I live on Marshalls Creek Road. Thanks to, where's the guy in this here? Where's Pat for me? He can live somewhere. But he sold me my cabin. I live in a log cabin down Marshalls Creek Road. And I've been there for 44 years. So, and I go right past Mountain Manor. And I met Craig and Russ because Mountain Manor, I'm getting a little emotional here, their family were the only ones that treated us with respect back in the day when we had Hillside, and they helped us and they helped my family, and I loved them. And that's why. But you know what I did? When I found out that they were selling it or something to somebody that might put a distribution center or even a big thing, I said, what? I go up and down that road, I've been going for 44 years. And trucks around, I don't even have all this around, and what is all this about? I come on, try something else, go see somebody else. And then when I heard about 850 units and all that, huh? What? And then finally I sat down and said, well, you need to tell me about who's the person that wants to try to develop this property and who you're selling it to. And when they did that, and they told me about Mr. Herman and his organization and who he was, and then I wanted to know all about that. I then said to myself, I did the research and I said, well, okay, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that, but I want to make sure that what you do, if it's approved, which I hope it is, that it be done correctly so that me as a property owner and a person who's up and down that road all the time, it's not going to be anything of inconvenience. And now there's Bulldog and all kinds of other developments. And they said that they'd make sure. And I said, well, how can you do that? I said, how can you make sure? Well, I want to see and go over your engineering. I want to go over everything you're doing. And I want to, Mr. Cateo, everybody, and I have, and I've read all the stuff, I've looked at it. And talked to Mr. Maturga, who I've known since 1974 when I became an attorney with Ralph years ago. That I think it's something that can be done. And that in the future, depending on what happens here tonight or whatever, will depend on whether or not I continue to represent Craig and Russ. And with that, what I would like to do is introduce Russ Scott. And he has a little handout for everybody here to explain why he's selling the property. Okay? Could you help me out, Sonny? Help me out. Right here. Where is he going to make chair?
That's if you want to stand right there.
Make sure the supervisor get it.
Sure.
Yeah, right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna give everybody gets one.
Yeah, we got enough.
Okay.
Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
They love you down before you start. How you been?
Hello, Robin. Hi, thank you. That-
I'm great, thanks.
Great.
Oh, I didn't get it. Thank you. You're welcome.
Brian, I'll say hello to you before we get started. I hope you're doing well. I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for your time. And I see congratulations are in order for our chairman here tonight. He is now taking on a new position where he is now the chief of staff for Representative Maureen Madden. Congratulations. And you're going to get this. I'm sure. Absolutely. All set, Ralph? Okay. What this handout is about is explaining exactly what our arrangement with Mr. Herman is. It's something you haven't heard yet tonight. It relates to the map that's up there right now. And we'll answer any questions as we go forward. Tonight, gentlemen, you're in charge of Smithfield's future. I'm here to present the future of Smithfield Township and the possible effects on its residents. Two largest land events will be discussed tonight. How this came about was Mr. Herman wanted to purchase land between Marshall Creek Road and Craig's Meadows Road. We refused, indicating we would sell all the land between Route 402 and Craig's Meadows Road. Mr. Herman had no need for all that land, but agreed to purchase it. And he said he would give the land to the township. And the beauty of all this is that there's no tax impact or the East Stroudsburg School District. There are no children. First, the largest economic project in the history of Smithfield Township. The project would sit on 147 acres. You're hearing some other numbers with ballpark, that's based on my projections. Once with about 25% of impact. The project will produce $3 million of tax revenue yearly. To match this $3 million annual income, 800 homes will need to be built. This event would produce 2.5 children at $16,000 a child. And this totals out to a negative $32 million a year to the East Stroudsburg taxpayer to educate that population. Also, East Stroudsburg School District has a ratio of 14-to-1 students to teachers. To maintain that ratio, an additional 70 teachers would need to be hired at $4.6 million per year. I estimate that our millage, tax millage, today is 187 mills, would probably have to go to 197 mills in a 10-year period. Can you afford to stay in your home at that rate? The second phase of this project is 100 acres of property, which at one time was owned by Mountain Lake House, starting in 1902. They built 8 log cabins in the 1930s, which became seasonal rentals. The owner of Mountain Lake House at the time, in the 50s and 60s, was an outdoorsman, Mr. Elwood Huffman. He was also a head of the Pennsylvania Game Commission. That 100 acres was his private hunting preserve, stocked quail, pheasant, turkey, and ducks. In 1981, Mountain Manor Resort acquired this property and continued to rent the log cabins. In 1983, construction was started to expand Mountain Manor's golf course to 54 golf holes. The environmental impact for that construction stands today. Land was cleared, filled, graded, drained, topsoil hauled in, seeded and mowed to a golf quality turf. When we opened the golf holes, 6,000 feet of paved park paths were installed. And still the next day, 2 steel bridges and concrete bridges over the Marshall Creek meet the 100-year flood requirements. Near the parking lot, in which I discussed in the paper I've handed out to you, is grandfathered, and an HOP is a highway occupancy permit. You'll see that definition. And this is grandfathered in and allows the township, should they own that, to immediately have access to that parking lot. This public access to the Marshall's Falls, plus some additional access off of Route 402. To suggest this property cannot be built on, I would refer to the township engineer. And as the land has already been environmentally impacted, the housing subdivision would only need to manage the impervious stormwater impact. Also now known as the land has been timbered twice in my lifetime. And the point is, total earth disturbance has happened. The federal term for this is made over. As the Marshall's Creek flows from Marshall's Falls Park to the bridge on Route 402 on the western boundary of this 100 acres. A rare, high-quality cold water fishery considered in the 1920s to be one of the top trout streams in the entire state of Pennsylvania. The beauty of this trout stream is that it is mowed right up to the edge of the stream, allowing young people to have easy access to the water to fish. Plus, there is no danger or impact from the warehouse project. To conclude, Smithfield Township is part of a case study called Municipal Action to Protect and Improve Water Quality in the Delaware River Watershed. This happened when Brian Barrett was chairman, and in the study, the township agrees to protect water quality, and this is a chance for them to do that. Also in the case study, in 2016, the voter approved $2 million referendum to buy open space. Mr. Chairman, this $2 million referendum can purchase property only if it appraises for the value of the 2 million or less. In other words, appraisal won't let you buy it beyond that point. The benefit of the completed project and the $2 million gift is a huge advantage to the Smithfield Township and the taxpayer. As the township can continue to mow, build athletic fields, add restrooms and pavilions. All the utilities are on the property: electric, phone, Blue Ridge cable, and a modern drilled well. This land would be the largest addition to Smithfield parks in the future and would extend their park system into the next 100 years. Finally, like you, my brother and I are here for the future. We hope you consider all the options. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes,
Who is Holly, Scott?
that's my oldest daughter.
And did you speak to her about your interest in rezoning her property?
Yeah.
And did she consent to that?
Sure.
And would you identify what we marked as petition one?
Yes, this is a written agreement that she has signed, indicated she would allow her property to be part of it.
Thank you. So in summary, in addition to benefiting from, of course, the sale of your property as proposed for commercial development, should the zoning amendment be adopted, there is a component in this that will deal with Mr. Herman to donate the land that you referred to the township.
That's what the deal is. Yes.
Questions from the board?
Barbara, do you have any questions? Brian?
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
Hello? Hello?
Is someone else on Zoom? Are you still able to hear us in the meeting room?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, can you hear us?
You awake?
Brian, are you there? Can you hear us?
Now I can. Yeah, it was total blank.
Oh, got it. Okay. Jacob is wondering if you have any questions for Mr. Scott.
And you're going away again.
That was a little faint from in the room.
Okay, my apologies. Brian, do you have any questions?
Yes.
For
Questions of Russell? One question that I guess I'm concerned about is, will this be the only structure business built on this parcel? Or would there be opportunity for others?
To my knowledge, Brian, is the only structure. Mr. Herman can answer that better.
Okay. Mr. Hearn?
You'll testify in a minute, Brian.
Okay, we're prepared to offer, the next witness. Oh, Mr. John Herman.
Stand or sit down?
You don't mind, just,
I'm comfortable either way. Hi.
would mind to stand there, that would be
Okay.
great. Have you raised your hand? You do solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Herman, for the record and the benefit of the public, would you tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay, I am John Herman. I'm a lawyer by training. Haven't practiced in like 35 years. That's why I need people like Ralph. I own several real estate companies. I own the largest Century 21 office in the Northeast, and a commercial brokerage company. And we also have a management company. We manage maybe 5 million square feet of office and warehouse space. And my primary real estate development.
And what is your interest in the Scott and Manor Holding properties?
My interest in their property is to develop it for a warehouse distribution facility.
And in concept, is that in keeping with the concept that Mr. Cote presented?
That is correct.
And you worked with Mr. Cote to develop that
Yes,
concept?
we worked together in concert to develop that layout.
And what is your with large scale warehouse development?
I've developed several million square foot warehouses in the past, let alone of smaller sizes. I've just did a 400,000 square footer in Football Township and have a 300 that is on the way, and I've developed from Hagerstown, Maryland, up through across 78 in Pennsylvania and up here.
And in so doing, are you familiar with the fiscal as well as the economic benefits of those types of projects?
I am.
Did you prepare a schedule for us for the board this evening?
I did.
And if you would please, I'm handing you what is petitioner's exhibit 2, and ask if you would simply identify what that is.
That is basically an outline of some of the economic impact of both the alternative use.
Hello? Hello?
Having this experience. This property.
Yes, really my the warehouse project like this would probably be around $150 million project. And 800 homes at $200,000 a home, close to that value. Be $160 million. Resulting real estate taxes too are about the same. County tax would be $293,000. Township tax would be $73,000. School taxes would be $2.8 million. Total of over $3 million taxes generated by both homes and warehouse. Difference is that there's very little detrimental tax impact on the community through a warehouse. There are no students, additional students in school. The roads are not dedicated, and residential development, the roads are dedicated, and municipality has to snow plow them and do all that stuff. There are usually no increase in needing for police or hospitalization. So the impact on the community is much less. I know currently the school budget this year was $179,500,000 with a projected loss of over $6 million. And the cost per student is my research showed that there were 6,307 students in the school system, 10 schools, 6 elementary, 2 intermediate, 2 high schools, with 504 teachers. So the cost per student is $29,491. And if we assumed only 1,000 new students, which is probably a low estimate, that's $29,491,000 more dollars needed to run the school system. And as Russ mentioned, the current student teacher ratio is 14-1. And if you wanted to maintain that ratio, you need 70 new teachers. An average salary is $80,000 per teacher, which would be an additional $5,600,000. So that would be the impact of having a housing development there as opposed to a distribution. John talked about the traffic. Now actually a house development has 4 times or more total traffic than a warehouse would have. I have here, in addition, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce did a study in 2022. I have it out. So, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, sorry, identified. The exhibit is community economic impact of the distribution center by the U.S. Chamber. So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce did an economic impact study of distribution facilities. And the interesting part, it was done in 2022. They took 30 communities across the country with 1 million square foot warehouses that communities ran in size from 100,000 people, 20 million. 20 million doesn't apply here, closer to the smaller end. The smaller the community, the higher the impact was to the economic community, to the plus. The average worker made $3,000 more per year after the facility came in. And over a 20-year period, that adds up to a lot. For every job created in the warehouse, 0.7 new jobs were created in the community because of the warehouse being brought in. So the community services, people having more money to spend, and the type of jobs that are created in these facilities are not just packers and people that drive tow trucks and things like that. They're very high tech, so they have different types of engineers, mechanical engineers, technical engineers. Because as we know, the demand for these facilities is such that you see them growing all over the place, and that's the reason why. 16% of all retail sales are now done through the internet, and so this is a facility that supports that.
And Mr. Herman, you listened to Mr. Scott's testimony concerning a portion of the property that was proposed to be gifted to the municipality. Can you identify what that is and confirm your intention?
Go up to the map?
Yes, I think it would be appropriate. Thank you.
No, this one here. This is Marshall Creek Road here. So the warehouse was on the west side of Marshall's Creek. And this 90 to 100 acres to the east of Marshall's Creek itself
I would be donating to the community for a, whatever their park system, whatever their intended use might be. It's unfortunate I had an expert to come to testify as to the value of this tonight. Dr. Hugh Archer was supposed to be here. He was Deputy Director of DEP and was president of the waters of the Delaware watershed. And he was going to come testify as that, but at 12 o'clock today, I got a text from him. He had COVID and went to the hospital. So
Did you have him visit the site with you?
I did not have him visit the site, but he's been up here his whole life. He knows it intimately. He knew the stream very well about the high quality waters. But he was not on site with me.
Had he been here, you discussed his testimony with him, had he been here, what would he say?
He volunteered that this would make a wonderful park because of the nature of the topography, and I mean, he's an expert at that, I'm not, but he was talking about the high quality water stream and how that's integral to the Delaware water shed system. He thought it was a wonderful idea and great in keeping it in perpetuity.
So is it that you're proposing to do that when you're dealing with Scott?
Because I don't need it for my use.
And they're requiring you to purchase it nevertheless?
Yes, the deal that I made was either purchase it or no deal, and I thought it would be a good thing to do.
Now, you were at the planning commission presentation several weeks ago. And did you hear a comment made that there was other adequate ED zone properties in Smithfield Township that would be available or suitable for the type of use that you're proposing?
I did hear that.
And what did you do as a result of that?
I called the commercial realtor Spiro, Biliana, and asked him if he was knowledgeable about the area. He said he was, and whether he would do a study as to see whether or not there was other land in the ED zone that would be suitable for this type of project.
And did he generate a report for you?
He did. He generated a report. He said he would have testified in person, but he's on vacation.
And can I hand you what we marked as your petitioner number 4?
Yes. That's the report.
The report that Mr. Billy. This is the report that Mr. Giuliani prepared.
Correct.
And are you familiar with it?
I am.
And essentially, what does it?
That Scott site is the only suitable site for a warehouse development of this sort.
And for the benefit of the board and the public, did you in fact examine and tour other parts of Smithfield Township with the idea of finding alternate locations?
I have. I've looked all over the area. That's why I have some in football and here.
And are there properties that are either accessible from the standpoint of highway access or topography or both that might be suitable?
None that I came across.
Most of the ED zone properties are in sloped areas where
Are in sloped areas, and there's smaller parcels owned by mobile people that don't have the width or the depth to allow for this type of development.
As well as being accommodating for highway access.
Correct. Access is paramount.
Offer the witness to the board. Board has any questions of the witness?
No questions. Brian, do you have any questions for Mr. Herman?
No, it was really broken up though. For one reason or another, I didn't really get much of it. But no questions.
That being the case, we're not stating, but I'd like the board to accept the exhibits that we marked 1 through 4, and I think we should probably also mark the handout that Mr. Scott gave. So if somebody has one of those, we can mark that number 5, and that would essentially conclude the record exhibits from the petition.
I don't have any issue with the exhibits.
No, I don't either. I'm just going to just review them on, we'll be off the record as we go back on as we need to, so. I have.
So you brought the recommended on, I think, Mark. Thanks.
This is off the record now. This is be marked on there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, this was marked as P1, so we don't need it.
No, this was not one.
That was one?
But Kelly Scott's letter was P1. And this is.
Oh, okay. So see, I thought this was the letter. Okay, so this is now P5.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So then I have then P1, the Holly Scott letter.
Right.
P2 is the benefits, the fiscal and economic benefits outlined.
Right.
P3 is the community impact of
Right.
distribution. P4. I have the realtor report, I'll call it.
Right.
And then P5 is the Scott handout.
That's it.
Okay.
Well, you want to make sure Don gets the Chamber of Commerce report. A little more.
Yeah, remember.
There's one that's marked.
Yeah, there's one that's marked.
That would not be with me. It might have through late you walked away.
What do you
maybe a
mean?
little
It's
bit.
not under-
Mark P5.
Oh, I'll just mark another one.
I have these.
Here,
I've got them all.
I walked with him.
Oops.
There you go.
Here. We're good. You want that?
I don't, you know. Maybe go back on the record.
Good as Don is ready.
All right. So that concludes our formal presentation before the board this evening. I know you want to hear comments from the public, and you of course may do that.
And let me just say to the public, so you are aware that this is a public comment period. It is not a question and answer period. It's a public comment period. And generally, under the PA open meeting law, only individuals who live in the township or who pay taxes in the township can comment. Now, that's not saying the township would not allow others to comment, because they have generally been very free in that regard, to keep that in mind. So that being said, we would ask whoever would want to comment to please stand, state your name and your address, and of course, make your comment.
Carl O'Merrill, yes. Browning Road, East Stroudsburg. I think I understood, referring to the map in the front of the room, that there was going to be this beautiful scenic park that was described by Mr. Herman. And I don't understand how that would be a beautiful scenic peaceful park if it's a next door neighbor to this 45-foot gigantic warehouse. I mean, that's like ludicrous.
Yes, my name is Tammy Booth. My address is 490 Taylor Drive. I just want to say that we were aware of this. I know this is the first stage. I was quite surprised all this came out. The neighbors, and I could probably get more signatures. I've collected 109 signatures concerning this project, and it says the undersigned owners of property affected by the requested zoning change described above do hereby protest against any changes which would rezone the property from R1. The property directly adjoins residential property, and we oppose any zoning that would increase the noise, the traffic, that would detrimentally affect peaceful enjoyment of our homes And we also feel that any change in zoning of this property would negatively affect the value of our homes, safety of our children, and aesthetics to the environment and the wildlife. I'd like to present this to the people. To, I don't know who gets it. I'd raised the hand before because I can't see real good, and I wanted to see exactly where they were proposing these lines, if I could go and look, because this so happens that 3 sides of my property are Mountain Manor. And I'm a little worried here. So, I'm not going with this one. This is where
She's not on any one of them.
I'm not on Kirksville Road, and I'm up here, and my property abuts.
You're up in the far left corner beyond the map.
Okay, so over here is where the pond is. And you're
No,
saying-
not blown out. Pond's there where that gentleman's hand is. Beyond that, over there, right? Craig's Meadows, look at where Craig's Meadows Road is, over here on the left.
Right,
Follow
and I
that.
go up Craig's
Follow
Meadow
that
Road.
up, follow that up.
Yeah,
The pond is right where your hand is. You're beyond that half a mile.
are you getting it? Because I'm not getting it. But you're saying that these maps are on the sites, the township sites?
Correct.
Okay, so everybody knows that.
All of the
That
maps
these are
available.
on the township. And it, I have one, we're not allowed to ask questions, but I just have a concern.
No, I want to be clear, you can ask questions.
I want to know, when
Very
you're talking about taxes and all that, do you have anything written in there where you're not required to do taxes for the first 10 years? Anything like that, if you would bring a warehouse in? I'm just curious. I didn't see anything. I'd like to know. Is there
Are you
anything?
familiar with the alert zone?
No, I think that's what she's referring to.
So I'm coming through to the township, asking for the neighbors who live around there, who have lived there their whole lives. Okay, I understand you're given this other part of the property, and I know the spots. I know them. I'm kind of surprised, maybe not. But I know you're given this little thing here. The township's gonna get this little piece of property. I want you to think the impact it has on these people.
Fine little.
The impact that it has on the environment. And I also want you to think, if the warehouse does come through, what the emissions does as far as the air quality and everything. So thanks for letting me go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say the same thing. I live up Craig Meadow Road, 252 Orchard Road.
You need to identify yourself.
I'm Deborah Tala. I live on Orchard Road, off Craig Meadow. And when we turn into No Outlet Road, we all move back up in there, and it meets the golf course. Okay, the golf course is below us, we're above it. So we're gonna see all these bright lights from a warehouse. We're gonna hear trucks beeping all night long and during the day. We're gonna have diesel smell, the roundabout, so bad now with just cars. I mean, ask people, they'll tell you. I mean, I even talked to one of our representatives, state representatives, and they said the same thing, that that was the worst thing that was ever built. Okay, so that's personally, I know that. But then the animals too. You're pushing more animals out all over the place. My yard looks like I own a deer field because they have no place to go, which I don't mind. But still, the environment, the pollution from the trucks, I can't stand the smell of diesel personally, but that's just me. And like I said, I mean, the traffic, our kids, we have young children that live up in there. So that's my concern. Also the water, for the animals and stuff, and going into the Delaware or wherever the water goes to. I'm concerned about the environment for that reason also. And public health.
Thank you. Yes, Baron.
One thing, Russ, I want to ask you about the Marshall Falls property. You promised the township to give us parking. And when it came time that we needed it, and I think Robert knows this, he wouldn't answer the phone. So we never, Robert had to go buy property, so we'd have parking.
Okay. Your Pam?
Yeah.
Okay. Brian wanted an easement to the park, using the parking lot.
And you agreed to it.
Now listen to me. At this time, we were selling the property to D-Rake. D-Rake did not want the easement because he was gonna use some of the golf course to expand his project.
But you wouldn't answer any of us.
Answer you?
No, you wouldn't answer Robert, you wouldn't answer Brian. In fact, Mr. Ford and I were
I
gonna complain.
have no idea what you're talking about on the answering, because I pick up my phone. So the point is, the deal was not conducive to the owner who wanted to buy it. And he has since deceased, and that project is gone.
Okay, and I'm just saying, the only place to build a warehouse, are you guys aware that Mr. Peppers had plans to build a warehouse behind the dairy?
I have no idea.
And Frank's having a fit. Fortunately, Frank had it in his, when he sold.
That's true, he had that plan.
Well, he was saying there's no other place to build warehouses.
What? No, you missed the point.
My understanding is there's a restrictive covenant on that property, so they can't do it, and the warehouse is 1/5 the size.
We had one property across the street anyway.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
I'm asking you, and I try to send you things. This has got to be a plague everywhere. You go over in New Jersey, it's beautiful farmland on the other side of the river. Every house has a sign on it, no warehouse. I mean, I guess I can't say truck, but I know the Ho Chi Minh. The poor people personally that were killed by trucks.
Most of the people in this room don't know that those days. So you have to be reminded of that.
She got killed. It's just not.
Did you hear the end of your traffic study comments?
No, I can't say truck, is that? A lot of it
It's trips per day.
Russell, I read on that, but I know. It just is not something, I don't, and we're a vacation area, we're not a warehouse area. Everybody's having a fit, nobody wants these damn things, excuse me.
Some vacation in Poconos, boom, you get off 209, there's a warehouse.
And you can say, Russ, that you're giving that property, I got 550 acres for that township. I think that was a pretty good chunk of property we have. And it's nice that we have lots of parks, but they cost money to keep them up. Somebody's got to take care of it. So it's not really a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah, hi, Doug Scriver, Planning Commission, formerly chairman, now just a rank and file member. I'm here with my colleague, Mitch Boyer. And all I'm here to do is this little housekeeping, is to say that after the meeting with these fine gentlemen at the Planning Commission, two other of our members voiced their opposition via email to the board. And so you should just, all I wanted to do is mention that Mitch and both Mitch and David Strunk voiced their opposition. So that kind of raises the against 4 ratio to 4 to 2.
We received those letters.
So you got those letters. I just wanted to make sure, and that's my housekeeping. And our decision was based on the rezoning only. No consideration as to the warehouse situation and or truck traffic or anything else. However, there's been an awful lot of talk about it tonight from the applicant. So it sounds like the warehouse deal and the truck traffic and all that is part and parcel of this. And that's what I said at the planning commission meeting, and I'll say it again now. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on 1 second. Raise your hand.
I'm Mary Jane O'Merrill, Red Fox Road. First, I'd like to say we loved it when the Scots had the golf course. I mean, it was just happened. So I'm so sorry that that's not still there and a viable economic thing. We loved it. We went to dinner all the time at so it was just a wonderful place to be. So my heart is just so sorry for that. Now, I am not in favor of moving this to residential. I like the residential. I certainly do not want to go to a warehouse and rezone it. I've lived here the 50 years that I've lived right here on, right in this area, Red Fox Road. I remember when the trucks did go by. I lived here then, and my bedroom just heard it on and on and on and on. And they used to gear up, to get up to things, and so it went on and on. And I cannot imagine 14,000 of them running by. I just cannot imagine that to the peace and quiet. Going trying to get to Route 80. I mean, what happens to the Dairy Queen, the Bod Lot, all those places there? I will never go on that road again. I mean, we all know the back road, so we'll have to go that way. We will never go that way. We will never go that way. And what about the tourists who are coming up here to go to Shawnee and to go to the ski places, to go? They want to go by 14,000 trucks. I mean, I know they come all hours. He said it's all hours of the day.
I apologize.
We're not.
We're misquoting the 14,000.
Yeah.
That's the residential trips. The truck.
Residential. I'd much rather that. He said there's gonna be, I think he said 991 units. They're gonna buy. How many years do you think it would take them to get 991 houses in there? So we might have 20 years or 25 years, where there might be 150. That's okay with me, rather than all these truck traffic going. And we talked about the parks. We're talking about, what about this little park over here? Front park. So, that's a nice park. What about coming in from Alaska Pete's and now the 1,700 trucks are coming in and the kids are coming in there for soccer every night. That's going to impact. We take care of that park and love that park. Can I finish? You guys had a lot of time.
I'm just gonna give you something for context, because you're speaking at a turn, and I just really want to I want to just clarify. Of the 1,700 vehicles a day, 1,100 of those are passenger vehicles, 600 are trucks.
600 trucks. Okay, you didn't say that.
When I was talking about the overall numbers.
600 of those babies. I remember when it was going that way. I lived there.
14,000 plus are vehicles from residential.
Okay, residential. I'd rather the residential. I would rather that. The other thing is, they talked about all these careers that we're going to have. Engineers are going to come. They're going to get all this money. I have friends. You have friends in here that work for Amazon. They don't be making that big money. They're running those tractor things that they go, and they have to get so many up on the charts.
Let's let them come back ready so we can, everyone can hear.
The Steno cannot take people all talking over one another. So would you please keep it down so that the Steno can hear whoever is speaking?
Thank you. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we cannot hear the room anymore.
Yeah, I'm really, whew.
Okay, someone on.
If you,
It looks like we're having a little bit of.
Well, maybe we should continue with the public comment.
we lost visual of the room, but there are at least 2 people on Zoom who have comments to make, and it seems like you can hear us.
We're certainly gonna get to Zoom after we complete those that are in person.
So the red is what? That was my question. What is the red? What does that mean? Economics about that.
That's what we're here for.
It's a
One person at a time, please.
Commercials on what the warehouse is in the middle, and then what's all around the outside?
The outside is zoned residential at the moment.
So they're gonna put houses there? No.
No. So.
That's residential.
Right, their proposal is to rezone 140 some acres from R1 low density residential to economic development, which is a commercial zone.
And when somebody, that drawing that's there, are they parking lots by Craig's Meadow? Is that a parking lot or what is that?
That's correct on this left hand side.
Is that a parking lot? Yeah. Okay, so that's the parking lot. All right, and then where is the actual warehouse? Is that in the middle?
Yeah.
That's the whole area in the middle. And what's going along the outside? Or is that parking, more parking, or is that
South,
just?
north and south of the building are the truck courts, east and
Truck
west are
courts?
the
Okay,
employee parking.
now I got it. Okay, I didn't understand that. Thank you very much. I remember when the trucks went by and I remember the day they stopped. That's that, I can remember the day they stopped and I could sleep without having trucks, with the windows. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry. I didn't say that.
My name's Wayne Kelly. I was born in Monroe County and now I reside in Craig's Meadow for Perch Acres. And for the way our community has been, like what I'm trying to say is that these great engineering jobs and high-tech jobs, maybe we could have the residential part here and they can go to the Lehigh Valley.
Thank you.
Jessica Ackerman, I live on Wayne Avenue, so I understand the purpose we're here is for the rezoning. I feel that regardless of what goes in there, if it is rezoned, a door opens for anything to go in, whether it's a warehouse, whether it's another water park, whether it's whatever, anybody with enough money or getting enough money will want to put in there. Doesn't matter what we want. Doesn't matter what any of us want. I grew up on 402 at White Heron Lake. For the longest time, there was no tractor trailer traffic. All of a sudden, they were allowed. That road is destroyed. They redo it every couple years or so. I get windshields. Right back to normal. Crash. Route 209, everybody keeps mentioning the Ridgemont Trail. If anybody here drives any road in this township or this county, they all feel just like that. They are Gap View Drive was my back road to get to closer to the end of 209. Right now, these back roads for my back roads between the traffic and even just regular RVs coming through, people don't belong there, people don't know where they're going. It's a nightmare. I don't care if it's 10 tractor trailer, if it's zoning goes through, a warehouse is built, and I can enjoy my cup of coffee on my back porch, staring at a 4 or 5 story building. I don't know how many trees you're gonna put up. We're gonna see it. We're gonna hear it. My kid walking down the road to get his bus stop. The truck traffic, 10 trucks, 20 trucks, 600 trucks, and it's not gonna be AM, PM rush hour. It will be all day and night. The lights will be on all day and night, and the noise will be there. And the roads will continue to get destroyed because that's not a priority in this town. That's it.
I'm Jimmy Mole. I live up Marshall's Creek Road. I want to just question a little bit of what I heard about taxes. 900 houses plus. I just wonder how far along that preliminary was actually taken. We made a lot of references to it, a lot of comparisons. This gentleman said that 200K per house, 900 houses, 800 houses. And he was given the taxation bill of about
160 million.
Yeah, right. Well, then,
Construction, it's all based on current millages, or public.
Today's houses are being built at roughly $200 a square foot. If they were $2,000 assessment, that would mean that all these 800 houses were going to be approximately 1,000 square foot homes. The other thing I would like to know is, we talked about the exceptional water quality. When all of this was preliminarily done, how far along was that? Was there a plan submitted for these 800 houses? Was it going to be on-site septic? Was there going to be a septic plant that was going to send their effluent into this high quality creek? Where is all of the water runoff? Because in that plan, I really don't see, with all the square footage of these parking lots, where it's going to go. We're not going to put it across the street because we're gonna have a park over there. Okay, where is the effluent water going to go? I'm thoroughly confused.
That's right.
I'm confused by how the taxes are being figured out, how the benefits are going to come to the Monroe County residents. I'm confused by the fact that.
I'll address your statements if you'd like.
Sure.
Can you pop that map back up, please?
The one with the warehouse?
Yeah, that's good. Sir, you see the ponds there, just behind, north of the warehouse? You want me to put this up there? I'll do it. Right here, these ponds. Okay. The level of those ponds are 8 foot below the Marshall's Creek. Understand that? That will be the area of stormwater drainage. The entire valley from Craig's Meadows Road, actually all the way to East Stroudsburg, from Craig's Meadows Road to Marshall's Creek is a glaciated valley. In the center, it's roughly 60 feet to bedrock, and it's all gravel and glaciated. And the engineer can speak to this better than I can, but he will tell you that we have to slow down the stormwater runoff because it seeps into the ground so quickly that the DEP does not like that. They want it slowed down. So the retention basins would be part of that stormwater right there. The other aspect of your tax comment, I didn't quite follow your numbers exactly, but let me share with you our problem. We would still be in the golf business today. In 1990, the millage on this property was 38 mils. Today, it's 187 mils. And the township treated all the resorts in the township well, giving us residential permits to expand the resort umbrella. However, the county is the one who charges us accordingly, and the rateable on the tax is 4 times. So that if I had a house on there, instead of paying residential like most of the folks living in their house, we were paying 4 times that rateable. They considered us commercial. The town wanted us to say open space, being Smithfield. And that's what happened. And they finally put us out of business by property tax because we always took the capital that we made that year, and our margins are always small, but put it back in to capitalize the business and expand. Especially you heard my conversation related to golf holes and all. And I also will share with you, we were the second largest amount of golf rounds in the entire state of Pennsylvania annually. And with that being said, our market was New Jersey, New York, you know, all of that. And all these resorts that are gone today had the same problem. And I can ask my attorney here, he was in the resort business, to speak to the tax numbers too. But that's what basically happened. And that's put us in this position today. We're trying to find what we feel is a good answer for the community, but based on the rateables and also the open space, which you environmentally made a comment about. I agree with. That's kind of why we're trying to do what we're doing. That answers your question. Oh yeah, about the sewer. I spent 22 years on the sewer authority and chaired it most of the time. In Craig's Meadows, there's a sewer plant. There's a pump station that runs the Lake Valhalla sewer plant. There's 1,000 EDUs. An EDU is an equivalent dwelling unit that constitutes 200 gallons per EDU, and there's 1,000. We also have an agreement with the East Stroudsburg Borough to expand their system, so that we could put 1,000, 2,000 units on that property if the permits would allow it. There's enough sewer available. Also, as the people in Craig's Meadows know, they were brought in under the Pennsylvania American Water they used because their water system was so poor. But Broadhead Water Authority is the preferred user in Smithfield Township, and they would have plans to bring in water if it's needed, which then reduces your lot size to accommodate more buildings. take care of most of it?
Yeah, except that I was just wondering how far along, because of the constant references to the housing, the R1 residential. How far along was that actually?
Okay, I would, John, can you answer that? You were the engineer on that. How far along was the preliminary plan for LPS?
Additional use approval.
I'm sorry.
Explain it.
Additional.
Stand up, stand up.
Additional use approval under the planned residential development rules, guidelines of the town. So, date, I don't know the date.
That's like 16 years.
2007.
Yeah, it's no longer. So the developer was willing to pick up and use that approval, they could build whatever.
One thing I want to say, there's something you ought to think about. I hate to bring it up, but you know, the Motors development, we're all talking about taxes and how much it costs to put kids through school. They got a tip, so they're not gonna be paying any money to the school district. And they're making it all housing. They approved it for a shopping center, which we all knew, everybody goes to brick and mortar stores. I just read an article where hospitals are overbuilding, just like we're getting down here, and what's happening with the medical profession. So there you sit with a big block of land that's pretty much flat, and it doesn't have restrictions on it like Frankie's did. If you really want a warehouse, and you're right there at 80 and 209, put it there.
It's not available.
How do you ever buy it? Sheriff's sale.
It's not available. I represent the owner of the property. It's not available.
Why don't I mean, you know,
It's nice to say, put it there. It's not there. Can I, if you don't mind, can I make a quick comment on this? And this is involving Middle Smithfield County, because my hillside was in Middle Smithfield. And Jimmy, good thing. That's my buddy here, because we're both in Middle Smithfield down the Creek Road, and we were always wanting PennDOT or whatever to fix the Marshall Creek Road because it's nasty. It's 2.6 miles from it, and then more accidents. I'm always having to fix it and all that. Okay, but I just want to go back just to history, just a little quick. One of the things that Hillside was the oldest African-American Jewish hotel in the country, in the United States. And one of the problems we had, and as I said, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, 5 years old. We had all these, I was concerned when I saw, Russ told me, forgive me, that if this doesn't happen, you may have this huge residential facility there, huge. That's what put Hillside out of business. I'm just gonna say that when the school taxes went up, we were paying something like, I don't know, this is, I don't want to formally, I can't totally remember, but we were paying something like 50,000 a year. It went to like 150,000, plus they had room taxes. And we had to pay room taxes too, to the point that we couldn't pay school taxes of all the people that were coming from New York and New Jersey. Because all of a sudden, their kids stayed here, and it was no longer Hillside the resort, but it was just that we had a Murray Pocono estates around it. And the schools all of a sudden started building and building, and the next thing you know, they're taxing us, and they taxed us out of business. And that's kind of, that's, even though mine was Middle Smithfield, you know, it's where Gucci drive it. Russ, the same thing happened to him and all the other resorts in the Poconos, I hate to say not, the Honors and all the us, because of the school taxes. So when I saw that a person that I know, LTS, Bill, was gonna do 800 and something houses, I mean residential, I believe, unless I'm totally off the mark, those people are gonna bring their children, and the cost on when schools is gonna go up and up. And I just say, well, God bless you, Smithfield.
Weren't we building residential in Smithfield Gateway and Plan 5? Yeah, I'm sorry, people.
I just said, I didn't even say anything. I was just saying.
Yes, they have approved for some tentatively. And it's in a totally separate zone, and the way the TIF works is there's a ratio that pays off the debt for the road improvements. Over the course of that 20 years, at the midpoint of that 20 years, which the previous board had approved, the ratio flips and it pays the local taxes. So that there is a difference, but that said, I want to entertain more public comments on this matter before we proceed to a vote. So, sir, you could say that.
Yes, Tom Guard.
Sir, can you speak up, please?
Yes, my name is Tom Guard. Our property is on Milford Road, which joins this property, this project. I understand that sooner or later that property will be developed, and that's gonna happen. My biggest concern is through changing the zoning and opening the door to projects of this nature. I'm hearing a lot of talk about the number of truck trips and things like that. My biggest concern is infrastructure. You know, the infrastructure is poorly able to handle the vehicle traffic that it has right now. Talk about the roundabout. I couldn't imagine seeing 600 tractor trailers move through that roundabout in the course of the day. So I just want to say, my concern is about the zoning change, opening the door to other projects. And when you consider, talk about the 1 million square foot warehouse logistical space, you see where all these projects are going down along 33. They're right next to major infrastructure that's already there, or they just built an interchange at Taddy to accommodate that. They're not in residential areas that I can see.
Thank you.
All right, Maria Katz, I live on 402 as well. The thing I want to know is that stretch of 209 that you're going to have to use to get to Interstate 80 right now is a main artery that tourists use to come in to our area, especially to like Shawnee Resort. I'm kind of curious, does Shawnee Resort know about this? Because if you start putting 600 trucks on that 2-lane road, it's already jam-packed now with tourists. If you don't make that into a 5-lane road or a 4-lane road, that road is going to be impossible for the tourists to get in. All right, and that can actually really hurt Shawnee and all the resorts here. So I'm just kind of curious, does Shawnee know about all this? Do all these resorts know about it?
Our knowledge, yes.
Your knowledge? Okay.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have any plans to improve that road by putting 600 trucks.
That would be a town, that's a PennDOT road, so that wouldn't be the township.
Do what?
That would be a PennDOT road to state road, so the township does not.
So you don't care, to say, okay, we're gonna put it here, but then PennDOT.
No, that's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is I have no ability to influence what PennDOT is going to do. I don't think any supervisor asked for the roundabout and they built it anyway. So that's what I'm saying from our perspective.
So if we build that and PennDOT says, that's we're not gonna do anything in this road, what we just now have is a huge mess.
I think that's what we all have to consider. Thank you. Vince.
My name's Vince Delapera, and I live on Mount Nebo Road. I have a few questions, and I realize this is not a Q&A session, but I'd just like to put them out there. First of all, I'd like to know, I'm presuming that the trucks will be riding and leaving for 24 hours, for a full 24-hour cycle. They won't be, or will they be? Would you anticipate more trips during the day as opposed to overnight? I'm also would like to know exactly how many acres you are planning to dedicate, which I think would be a good thing to open space. And how much of that open space, as I recall, the original plan had considerable open space on it, and how much of that new open space is going to be I'm sorry, the original plan had a lot of steep slopes that they're going to build on. And I'd like to know how many of the steep slopes are going to be in the open space. And I just had a quick question about how many EDUs would you require for the factory?
Yeah, so big picture wise, I was just trying to read counties things, so you can correct me if I missed one. On the steep slope side of it, the intent of this development is actually to stay off the steep slopes. That's where I saw focus down the bottom of the hill. Right, the steep slopes, pretty much what you see, so you can make your way up beyond where the development is showing that.
So the open space will be listed in steep, contain the steep.
I'm
slope.
sorry, that's again.
I was gonna ask to clarify, will the open space will contain the steep slopes? The existing steep slopes.
So the open space isn't really just the property north of where the development is shown. The open space is actually the line, the land. So it's that, there is some sort of bank is in there, but it's mostly.
I'm sorry, I'm losing you.
It is those slope embankments that bring you down to the creek, but ultimately it's that low-lying land that is where the creek is now, not all steep slopes on the top of the hill.
Okay, everyone just hold on for a moment. We've been going 2 hours. Do you need a break?
It depends on how much longer we're gonna go.
Well, my intention is to be able to conclude this tonight, so I'd like to entertain a couple more comments, and then we also have Zoom.
And we have people on the line asking, so maybe we should take a 5 minute break or so to give Donna a chance to, no, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay. Well, that's the one that's taking Liz down and she's not being able to do it. So, okay.
Go ahead.
So
I also have a question about how much land is in the open space.
it's 100 acres, 90 of which is the land that's not in the red, zone, right, and 10 acres of that. Over 19 acres, so it's like, that's basically across the street and also the.
I'm sorry. You're real quiet.
I'm gonna speak.
Everybody.
Yeah, so 10 so.
Did I do the right one?
Yeah. Yes, I don't know, is this the right one?
Can we please limit approximately 100 acres? No, wrong. No, it's the other. Approximately 100 acres dedicated to open space. Yeah. 10 acres of that is a parking lot. Basically, we understand once the other is to the down, that's on the north side.
Can you do that again? Here's your 9 acre.
I'm gonna come over here. Sorry.
Right there.
My the dog, the dog point. Okay.
Both the dog and the pony. Move your butt over here. Don't put that down.
That's good.
I don't know.
It's good.
So if you're looking at this entire track here, right, 402 on the east side, Marshall Creek on the west side, basically this stretch of land here is 90 acres outside of the DD zone that we're referring to tonight. 10 acres of that will also be dedicated, which is basically the Lauper parking field to service this particular area's open space.
And the Marshall.
And Marshall. So basically, you're looking at about 100 acres of dedication. I apologize.
Okay, John, show the lake alone.
You're talking about the creek or
The lake part.
Oh, this part here? I apologize.
Once you've concluded this exercise, I'm gonna entertain the.
There are 4 ponds.
Okay. That was, Brian, that was your microphone providing feedback. So we're gonna give you a couple minutes to fix whatever just happened and we're gonna unmute you. I know you're on a landline right now. Oh, yes, yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. We have 2 people on Zoom. We have 2 individuals on Zoom that would like to make a comment. So one of you has raised the yellow hand. So I'm gonna. Whoever raised the yellow hand was Walrus, I think. Please identify yourself and then make your comment.
My name, first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Adam Waterbear DePaul. I am the Chief of Education and the Tribal Storykeeper for the Lenape Nation of Pennsylvania, the indigenous community of these lands. I am not here to offer an official position from council because our council has not been contacted by any of the parties who have spoken today or by any other party involved. But I am here to raise concerns about the environmental impact of rezoning this area. that resonate throughout the indigenous community and other communities that watch over the environment of Monroe County. I have lived in the county for my full 41 years, as have my ancestors before me since time immemorial. And we have taken care of these lands for time immemorial. Now I have heard that I am not allowed to ask questions, so I will phrase my concerns in the form of comments. I have noted that the speakers seem able to reply, which seems a bit lopsided if we are not allowed to question them. But given this structure, my comments are this. The numbers that the speakers are offering seem intentionally misleading in order to show a bias to rezone this project. They mention that there will be a greater number of vehicles if this is a residential area. But they say nothing about the fact that each commercial vehicle that would come in as a result of the warehouse would emit something like 50 times more emissions than any of the residential vehicles that would be here. The speakers say that they are making deals with other agencies to help increase and expand their systems, but they have offered nothing about the environmental or ecological impacts of those expansive construction projects. The speakers have said, for instance, each job created by this warehouse would in turn create something like, I believe the speaker said, 7 more jobs throughout the community. That seems to me like a direct admission that rezoning this property will be a gateway to exponential commercial increasement throughout the county and area. If every 1 job in the warehouse leads to 7 more jobs throughout the community, that means more commercial growth for each one of those jobs and more traffic. The speakers have mentioned that there will be a number of people. They mentioned the number of people involved with there being residential, and they have focused on taxes, right? We hear a lot about how school taxes will go up, be higher if this is residential. God forbid we give more money to our schools. We know we don't want to do that or have more teachers. However, what they have not offered any information to the effect that residents who live here pay taxes to the state, contribute to those taxes, contribute to our community. And the more people that are contributing to those taxes are reducing the number of taxes that each member has to pay. I have taught in the middle school, in the high schools, and in the colleges of these areas. They, oh, and lastly, in addition to these numbers, just to bring up how these numbers can be manipulated towards a purpose, the speaker on the table with the blue long sleeved shirt and the glasses, he said, quote, we, I assume you meaning the council, we have no influence over what PennDOT will do. He said this in response to another concern that was raised, that trucks mean that PennDOT's going to turn 2-lane roads into 4-lane roads and just increase construction exponentially throughout the community. He said that you have no influence over what PennDOT will do. I disagree. You have every influence over what PennDOT will do in the future. And the way you influence whether or not PennDOT will make these incredibly huge construction projects is whether you choose to vote yes or no on this. Voting yes will open the door to this increased traffic and will give PennDOT a reason to have these expansive construction projects. Voting no will mitigate that before it becomes an issue. So the last part of my comment is that you do, in fact, have a very strong influence over what PennDOT and what commercialization and construction in general happens in your township. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have one other on the Zoom, Rebecca Augustine, presume in person.
Hi. Well, first I want to say that I am so honored to speak after Mr. DePaul. And then I want to say my name is Rebecca August. I've been part of this community for 45 years. I used to live on Marshalls Creek Road for a very short time, and now I own property and pay taxes on White Heron Lake. I wanted to say that I agree with all the concerns of the different speakers that have spoken. And actually, I'm going to save time because my comment was also about the trucks. Diesel trucks emit 223 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. So that is about 50 times of the pollution of a car, which so 600 trucks, as was said, would be part of this project, equals roughly 30,000 cars. So the comparison is, and then that doesn't even account for highway, highway wear and all the other impacts that trucks have. So that's all I have to say. But I appreciate all the other speakers, and I agree with much of what has been said. Thank you.
Debbie Keegan, President of Bushkill Emergency Corps. And one of the things I just wanted to say, which is an ancillary project connected to this one, is an independent donation of property to the ambulance corps on the 402 side. And it will require in the future somewhat of a zoning change because it is not allowed to have an ambulance building there. So I guess maybe heads up. And I'm sorry we have diesel ambulances.
Who needs ambulances, right, Debbie?
Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie. Are there any final comments?
I'm Mitch Boyer. I'm here to comment as a resident in Sunrise Village off of Mount Nebo Road, and also as a member of the Planning Commission. The first thing I would like to request is to have the email that I wrote to all members of this group and the Planning Commission on December 13th entered into the public record. Is that possible?
Sure, I don't see why that would.
Okay, great. Okay, so this group represents a very, very small percentage of the 7,500 people that live in this township that will be affected by zoning changes. And I'm not sure that we handle those in exactly the right way. I don't know much about being on the Planning Commission because I'm very new there. But when I got on, I attended a course that was put on by the state of Pennsylvania that says what it takes to be a good planning group and commissioner. And what I found out is that what the state says is that we're supposed to have a comprehensive plan. And the last time we did a comprehensive plan for Smithfield Township, all municipalities in the state, all townships are supposed to have that, was in 2001. When I bring that up, people say, well, that doesn't apply anymore because it's too old. So I was around here in 2001. I didn't get part of the survey that went out, but I agree with the results of the survey. So just so you know, and I've commented on it, I want to say a couple of things. What that training course said is that the planning agency shall prepare the comprehensive plan for the development of the municipality. In our case, that's the township. And present it for consideration to the governing body, which is this group right here. It is the governing body. This comprehensive plan is supposed to be the governing body's adopted developmental policy. It is future oriented. It is the basis for the land use regulations, which I believe means zoning, and provides the rationale for regulating private property. When you look at what that plan said in 2001, and what it said was important to the people of this township, it said what the results of a large group that analyzed this, their conclusion was, goals include, amongst others, maintaining the distinctive character of the municipality, upgrading the image of the Poconos, and promoting the historic character of area communities. So when we think about zoning changes, those are things that I can look back in history and say, that's what the people of the township, many of you were probably here in 2000. How many of you were here? Yeah, okay. So then you can look at some of the specific comments that were made in the conclusion of that comprehensive plan. And there are several of them here. It said that the residents of Smithfield value the township's predominantly rural atmosphere. I'm not sure that that is taken into consideration in 2022 as we look at all the things that come before the supervisors. It also said, survey respondents thought regulation of land development in general was extremely important, given the highest priority to the density of the development, proximity to commercial development, and the proximity of that commercial to residents and impact on springs. Many of the things that you commented on already. Said specifically, small office buildings, woodcraft manufacturing, research facilities, other light manufacturing were also encouraged. While shopping centers, large office buildings, corporate parks, motels, hotels, wood processing, metal fabrication, warehouse/distribution facilities, printing companies, and trucking terminals were discouraged. I don't know that that has changed since 2001, when this very comprehensive plan was put together. My comment is, it's time to do another comprehensive plan. I don't care what the cost, and I don't care what the requirement.
It's somewhere around $50,000.
I'm only commenting from my personal point of view. I just think it's time to do another comprehensive plan and ask the 7,500 residents of this township what they want the development to be, not what we might think their development would be. Thank you.
It's sent a message to these two, and I think it's time that we put a group of citizens together and sit down and talk what we see in the future of Smithfield Township. Robert's been rewriting our ordinances, God bless him. We need a professional. We can't just do things like, be like me practicing medicine. And I know you got the email and I said, let's get together. People from all walks of life. I know years ago we did it with the sign ordinance. And sit down and work it out. It shouldn't just be in Robert's hands. It shouldn't. we all live here, I think we gladly give them time to sit down together and decide what we want to see this done.
That's absolutely our intention. So that said, there's no.
This is our petition, and I make a civil close.
Sure. You can be the last comment and then Attorney Matarja can make it.
I'm sorry. My name is Tammy Gillard. I live across the street here on Milford Road. We're on Birch Lane. And I was just wondering with the picture of the warehouse. On 209, are you going on to property? Like between the traffic light and Dollar General? Is that how you're entering on that part of 209, or is it on Creek Road?
No.
It
would be on business 209 proper. The location shown right now where the properties are currently under control, but the likelihood is it would have to be shifted to be about 1,000 feet away from the other intersection of that Creek Road.
I'm sorry. I'm losing.
It's just, yeah, to give you a quick perspective on it. This is, again, the reason I have got it as a concept is because right now, this is shown as an entrance right here, but the likelihood. Sorry. The entrance zone to the east here, but likely have to be shifted to the west. That property is not under control right now. Part of that is a discussion with the developer for control. But ultimately,
Where's Country Kettle on here? I'm too far, honestly, so where's Craig's Meadow Road? Just point there. I'm sorry.
So Craig's Meadow Road is the western boundary.
Wait.
Okay,
Country Kettle's here.
okay.
Actually,
So,
here.
yeah, down on 209.
Down here.
Okay, so,
This is Craig's Meadow.
and what is this?
That's property that's not held, that's other properties that are adjacent.
That's the pet place. Okay, so that's my house. Okay, I just wanted to see where, so this is where.
About
Yeah, somewhere out, adjacent, 1,000 feet away from that other.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's where you're away from.
77 Bridges Road. I'm saying it with that, my apologies.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm good.
the final word on the petition is gonna be given by Attorney Matarja.
Thank you.
To make a closing statement.
You've been very patient, and that's appreciated. I think what you can clearly say in proceeding like this is that a request for zoning change is often not popular. And these matters are not designed by nature to be a popularity contest. What these matters require is for the supervisor to do what you're elected to do, and that is exercise your best judgment to do the most good for the most people in your community. Sometimes that's not popular. Now, this zoning amendment will welcome commercial economic development. That's a given. And economic development projects are a window in time. They can't be chased down the road, and you oftentimes cannot go back to capture them. Opportunity presents itself. You have to make a wisdom decision as to whether or not this is something that you want to do and want to take an opportunity to capture the community. Thank you for the opportunity to present this.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, since we've heard all the comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing, but we're gonna remain on the record so we can make a decision.
I'll make a.
I had my hands up and I never got to make my comment.
Okay, I'm sorry. You can make your final comment, sir.
I'm Steve Kemper, I live on.
I'm sorry, Steve, could you maybe move forward? Come forward, please. Make it a little easier on you. Thank you.
I live on 3147 High Ridge Road. My concern is I have 3 parcels of land. I'm afraid, concerned with my property values, that I'm gonna be overlooking a 1 million square foot warehouse. I don't think that the comparisons are fair. Everybody keeps saying this 800 residential units. It doesn't seem like a fair comparison. If we're talking, if the property involved is roughly 150 acres. And it's zoned R1 low density right now. That requires a 50,000 square foot lot area. So for 150 acres, you can only put 125 lots on that.
Zoning residential development.
Better development goes by different guidelines. So the density for the units, the individual properties are much smaller than we're referencing the standard subdivision. Planned residential development by the town's ordinance is a whole different program in terms of how, that's how the other development was governed, based on those individual and approved lot sizes that are.
So how big are the lots?
They're down to 4,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet on the smallest. Some are as maybe as big as, I think the biggest maybe 10,000 off my head. I don't have all the numbers from, again, give the time frame.
Well, it's still not a fair comparison, because when you're talking about 800 properties, you're talking about all the property he owns, not just the 147 acres that we're dealing with.
Right, and that includes development on the land that's being dedicated as well. Yeah. So the comparison, we use that as well. In other words, that tract of land and the units that were.
Okay, but all the other property that's not involved, there's nothing to say that those homes can't be developed anyway.
Not that density threshold steep slope. That would change the north of that, the steep slope.
But it still could be developed.
Be developed at a much smaller, yeah, you actually look at the.
So you're not eliminating, by doing this, you're not eliminating 800 homes. They could still,
Actually,
they could still build
yeah, the 900
homes on the rest of the property.
the 991 that were previously approved. The majority of those are in the low-lying land where the warehouses. If you look at the concept that's out here on board, when you get a chance, I hope they're looking at hearing and all that. You can look at that, you can see that those are the larger.
No.
Oh. So you have your question, it's the density, residential development, higher density down below.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry. Back on what you. I apologize.
Don't forget about me, please.
I'm gonna turn to you, and actually
Thank
talk to
you.
you.
Okay, this is the last thing, and there's one more on Zoom. Then
These are the larger lots. Larger
Wait a
buildings.
minute, you're gonna talk to me. Just
Okay,
talk to me.
these are the lots that are on the north end, are the larger lots, the lower density. And the higher density are the ones that are in the reach down below where the warehouse is proposed. Sorry, I gotta talk to her. Just to give you a perspective, I'm not trying to, yes, we're not.
My point is that just because this is happening, this gets rezoned, doesn't mean that they're still not gonna build a couple hundred houses up there.
Right, but 100 or 200 houses up here is different than.
I'm sorry, what?
200 houses at the north side is different than 991 as an entire property. So, yeah.
I just don't agree with the comparison.
Yes, we think.
I don't get the whole comparison of taking that whole scope of this
Yes.
when we're only dealing with 147 acres.
This goes away to dedicated land east of Market Creek Road. Only the slope into the higher slope, the lower density, lower volume of homes built on the higher sloped areas here will be remaining. Everything else that we were talking about before was down here, down along Market Creek Road and down along 209 where the higher density, where the majority of those ones proposed. But to your point, if you took 700 off the book, sorry, I got to talk. If you took 700 off the books versus the 200 that are remaining.
I'm sorry, the two versus.
And just the 200 that are remaining. Just trying to give you a perspective. I didn't want you to know. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Austin, have you?
My other comment is, if this warehouse, if it does get rezoned, this warehouse doesn't go as planned, then it could be done, anything could be done there that's approved commercially. We could have cell towers built there.
Yeah, this is also part of your Route 209 corridor, just to keep in mind. That's the only thing that I just don't want to lose sight of. When you look at the red, when we ask about the red, that it is outlined in the overall zoning map, the township is looking to have adopted economic development components along your commercial corridors. That's really where all the focus was. This is the gap in that today because of the prior zone.
Okay, thank you.
And for anybody who didn't get a chance to talk, whoever's against it should stand up, so if you didn't get an opportunity to talk, at least we know how many people are against it.
Okay, all right.
Why don't you stand up?
Okay, Vicky, you have the last comment before we close the hearing? So Vicky, please proceed. Oh, Vicky, can you hear me if you feel like make your comment? I'm gonna take the hands now, so at this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the hearing.
Motion by Mr. Levinheim to close the hearing, all second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brian, are you there?
Brian, can hear you.
Brian? Okay. So the hearing's closed. And hopefully we hear from Mr. Barrett. Do I hear a motion on the petition?
I'm like to make a motion on the petition and also a statement, the motion.
Jacob,
Yes, Vic.
I'm sorry, I had a technical issue here with the microphone. Can I address my comment if it's not late?
Yes, it'll be on the record, so please be brief.
All right, people that who don't know me, my name is Vicky Osgood, and I live in the Lake Valhalla area, the nearby communities. Probably a lot of people don't know that's dealing with this warehouse issue. Lake Valhalla is also dealing with a similar situation. The company who bought the airport is Black Buffalo, that wants to put a 3D printing company in there. So my concern is that you already have one that wants to be built there, and then align according to the same the GPS coordination, you have another warehouse proposal. So like we're all stuck in this warehouse areas, and you have residential, you're never thinking about the pollution, the drainage, like the wildlife, like it will impact everybody. So right now, Lake Valhalla is impacted because it's already considered a light industrial, but the company that wants to come is not light industrial. So I prefer the residentials there to fight for their R1 zoning, because otherwise they're going to be in the same situation like Valhalla is. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Vicky.
All right, I'll continue with my statement in motion. As I was saying, Attorney Karasek said at the beginning of the session that this was about a zoning change. It wasn't about the use, but petitioners have chosen to confuse the use with the zoning change. And I think probably that's a good thing, because this is a very important parcel of land here. There are only 2 parcels of land in Smithfield that are available that are this size for future use. One is Gary Sports' farm on Fawn Road, which is about 250 acres. And my hope, at least, is someday that's a nature park. And then there's Mountain Manor. I think Mountain Manor has great potential for something. In 2016, we had a comprehensive plan done of that area. And the planner from Philadelphia suggested sort of a walkable village center in the area with an overlay of the R1 district. That's possible. But it seems from this discussion that quality of life is what we're all interested in, and the use of this land is very important to all of us. I have great respect for Russ and Craig Scott and for John Herman, but I'm going to say that I'm voting to deny this use.
Robert, is that a motion to deny the petition?
Motion to deny the petition.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. I will second. Mr. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Barrett, do you have a vote? I assume you're still on with us.
Can I vote for him right now?
No, you can't. Can't vote for him, but I'm sure that's what he'd do. Okay, so.
If you can't hear him, or if he is
Correct.
not able to get, right now, it would be, let's say he would be for it, it's 2 to 1, it
Correct.
would be denied in any event.
Correct. We'll give everyone a couple minutes before we get to the rest of it. No. Presiding.
Robert, makeup. Thank you.
Yes. Keep it out like you every day. Make it happen. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's. Well, I want to say we're meeting with you and we can talk about Sunday. Because then we have the western part of Little Smithfield, we have twice. So we would have you talk. And see what comes place on Friday. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then I'll talk to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Well.
They're not being that. Thank you for volunteering.
It is.
It's out to the lot.
Do a best page.
Yeah. Let me-
I don't know. LPO, I don't need to be in capacity. Going there.
For anybody left on Zoom, we're taking a short break so everyone can stretch their legs. In the meantime, I'm going to mute the meeting and we'll reconvene shortly. Thank you. Hey, Brian, we're gonna reconvene soon. We've just paused.
Okay, thank you.
We're muted. Okay.
We are reconvened here now at, I watched that during the last year, 1942. So we're going to consider solicitor's report. Ron, is there anything you'd like to note?
Just two things. Number one, I'd like to thank the board of supervisors for reappointing the solicitor for the 2000.
Did we do that?
I think you did. I'm not sure. I think I did. For 2023 for both the planning commission and the board of supervisors. Thank you for that. I appreciate that because I think I do a good job and I try to be fair and diligent. And secondly, I had sent to the township the first amendment to the development agreement in the Slater project, the Slater's project, and I said, put it on the agenda for approval by the board. Well, you already approved that on December 14th. You already approved that first amendment to the Slater Holdings LLC land development plan. So all you have to do is really sign it.
Right.
You don't really need to put it on the board. So if it can get signed and sent out to the side, or as a copy to me, that would be good. And other than that, because of the nature of the meeting and how long we were here, I'll save any other comments for another meeting.
Thank you. Amy, do you want to note anything?
We don't have reports.
Not a problem. Okay. First order of business is the consent agenda, which is very short, which includes ratification of the mileage rate for township employees at the IRS rate of 2023, which is 65.5 cents per mile for business use. So do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent.
Motion by Mr. Llewellyn.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr.
I'll
Rivera.
second it.
Yep, second by Mr. Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next is a discussion regarding candidates for township appointments. So we had new individuals reach out that were interested in appointment to positions in the township. I believe we have Mary Ann Cannell here, who submitted a letter of interest to the planning commission. I'd like to hear from, are you Mary Ann?
Yes, that's me.
Welcome.
Hi. I've been an employee with the East Stroudsburg School District for 28 years. Looking to retire, looking to do something, give my time to the community. I have no bias. I'm not a business person. I'm a nurse. And just looking to help the community.
I was wondering too, because we have two existing members that expressed interest in being reappointed, but there's another vacancy, which is on our zoning hearing board, which hears variances, and that, like you just said, that was music to my ears talking about not being biased. That's probably the most important board, because that's independent of us, but appointed by us, and so it's important to have someone. Yeah. Is that something?
That's not the only one. As long as we're recruiting here. Now, let me ask you, are you on the Smithfield sewer system by chance?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. No, I live in Smithfield Village.
That's terrific. Well, would you potentially, if we were to reappoint the other two zoning or planning members, would you be interested in the zoning hearing board?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so it only meets when there's an application due, so that would mean like if a project's approved and, you know, the ordinance might say you need 10 parking spots, but this group is going to decide whether it's acceptable if they request to do only 5 in exchange for putting up more trees or leaving open space.
Would Mr.
Attorney Karasek be available if I had questions, because I'm not sure of the
absolutely.
laws.
Sure.
You know,
Oh, yes.
Well, you would have, there would be a solicitor, it wouldn't be Ron Karasek, though. But you would serve on that board, very, very important board, as Jacob said. And you'd have your own solicitor, who you that board would have a solicitor. Am I getting through?
Executive branch, a legislative branch, judicial.
Hello?
Area branch is like the judicial branch. This is the executive branch. So that the executive branch has their own lawyer, the judicial branch has their own lawyer with respect to matters, and you can consult with him, but I'm always available. I got calls, 3 calls today from 3 different zoning hearing board solicitors, where I'm this township solicitor saying, what should I do with this? So whatever you need to do, I've been doing this for now
And there's
47
trainings
years.
too that we can make available. There's trainings, webinars, all sorts of, it's really interesting niche area in Pennsylvania law, but there's a lot of information that we can provide.
But people aren't jumping to do it.
Is a much more involved and interesting position than being on this planning commission. Planning commission recommends, but they really can't direct any traffic. Or direct what's gonna be built or not built by way of denying variances, permitting variances.
Hello? Jeez, hello? Hello? Jacob? Robert?
Pam just got home.
Brian, we can hear you, but we can hear the dogs. Oh, okay. We're good.
All right, you could hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Hello? What the hell?
You're good.
I think his phone mic can use.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Doug Scriber and Dave Struck to the Planning Commission Board for a term to end November 2027.
Okay, so the motion on there is, so the terms expire January of 2027, but I was going to ask, if you all don't mind, if we can appoint Doug and Dave to their current terms, reappoint them to the Planning Commission, appoint Ms. Cannell to the Zoning Hearing Board to the term that expires January 6th, 2025, and appoint Mr. Carlos Cubas, who's a resident of Smithfield Village, or Blue Mountain Lakes near Smithfield Village, also to the vacancy on the Board of Auditors. So I would ask that we would be able to make those 3 appointments or 4 appointments at once. Do I hear a motion to do so?
I'd make a motion to do so, or I will make a motion to do that.
Ryan, do I hear a second?
Yes, you do. I'll second.
Yeah, you heard. All right, cool, good. All right, motion by Mr. Levenheim, second by Mr. Barrett. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Congratulations.
That's a productive meeting.
Yeah.
My condolences.
No, trust me, we'll set up a time where you can come in and we can introduce you to some material and then the other board members too.
Okay.
You're good.
And
Thank
I'm
you for
happy to meet
volunteering.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's actually a really good test of patience. So we appreciate it.
You told me 1 hour.
Yeah.
I was wrong
That's
on that.
awesome. I wish. Ron and BBC. We'll be in touch. We'll get an official one. Thank you. Good night. Good night. Good night. All right, good night. Take care. Seeing as we do. Party to the
Yeah, just maybe, I put it on because I was getting calls from Attorney Kanziger.
What?
But I had it on to simply discuss where this was because there have been some unintended roadblocks with respect to what's happening with this. And correct, I and Attorney Wolf had an extensive telephone conversation yesterday. We joined to explore what we're doing, what's going on with this eminent domain, et cetera. So that's what it was on for, to just talk about that. But the three of us have been able to sort of get on board as to what to be done to keep that moving forward. And I don't have any problem tabling it, but again, if Attorney Kanziger is on and wants to offer any comments, she certainly should be able to.
Happy to hear that.
I am on. I don't know if you can hear me. Oh, wonderful. Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Kanziger. I am in-house counsel at Scannell Properties, which is the developer for the Vigon project on the south side of Airstrip Road. And I just want to thank Ronald for his assistance thus far. We're at a critical point in our construction where we need to understand the timing and get our documentation in order for the utilities and the completion of Airstrip Road all the way to where it connects to Airport Road. And at this point, I'm just working with Ronald to get title and survey matters in order. I think we're in agreement on the path forward, and I think in a future meeting very soon, he'll be presenting to you the documentation that we need signed in order to use the grant monies received by the Pocono Mountain Industrial Authority for the water and gas line extensions that are part of this project. So no real comments tonight. I just wanted to introduce myself and thank you for your time, and thank Ronald for his support thus far in the project.
You are certainly welcome, and you're a better person than I to sit here for 3 hours listening to all of that for your comment.
Not
well, how about us?
Well, but that, maybe you. I'm not sure if she got it.
Maybe it's fun. Who knows? Yes, all right. So I'll entertain a motion to table that until January 25th so we can have a more second. Okay, motion by motion by myself, second by Mr. Levenheim. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody wish to note anything for the Board of Supervisors report?
Not here.
I just want to thank everyone for the support. Obviously, everyone knows that I took that position now with Representative Madden, but I'm going to continue to be dedicated to the township, and I look forward to a really productive year. I sincerely hope that our next meeting is not also 3 hours, but I really hope our next meeting also has as much civic engagement as this one did, because I think it would be great to have more people involved. I am thrilled that Ms. Cannell actually sent us a letter of interest for the Planning Commission, and now is going to be on our zoning hearing board. I just think it's good to see more people being interested. So here to that.
Jacob.
Yes, sir.
A clarification on the public hearing. How did we close it? Did we vote?
Yeah,
it was garbled.
That's where we lost you, but we denied the petition.
I denied it also.
Okay. All right.
Let's make sure that's reflected in the record.
All right. So we'll note then that you have now voted also, so it's unanimous to deny the petition.
Perfect.
Right. Okay, good.
All right, so that'll be noted on. One last thing under the Board of Supervisors report. I mentioned about 3 hours ago that we had one other item to add to our agenda. So we budgeted funding to replace trucks under our capital improvement program for this year. So we did that in our budget for this year. So the ordering for government ends at the end of day on Friday.
Yeah, end of business day on Friday, government ordering is done.
Right.
Ed has located and found two 2023 F600s that he wishes to purchase. That stays underneath the $250,000 threshold allotment and will help replace two ailing trucks for the township that are on their way out.
And it also is great because not only are those trucks on their way out, but these two trucks do not require CDLs for operation.
That's correct.
So
You could drive it.
yeah, I guess you could, theoretically. But regardless, it's great that in the event there is an emergency, we do have other people on call that are able to operate those vehicles to plow and whatnot. So this will be good for emergency response.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Chair, is this an amendment to the agenda?
Correct. So I'm gonna entertain a
So you
motion.
need a motion to amend the agenda.
Yep.
You have to then explain why you are amending the agenda.
Correct.
And then tomorrow, the amended agenda has to be put on the website and on the door posted wherever you
Yep.
post your agenda. Okay.
Correct. So it does.
That complies with Act 65.
Correct. So pursuant to Act 65, I will entertain a motion to add the consideration for the approval of quotes, the proposal for like Coke 33 Auto for our 2023 F600.
Motion to add to the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second? Second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now a motion.
Aye.
And now do I hear that we approve the quotes or the proposal?
I make a motion that we approve it.
Aye.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
Second. Second.
With Act 65, the reason this is being added onto the agenda is that we received these materials late yesterday.
That's right, within the 24 hour
Within
And
the
it
window.
has to be done by the end of the week.
It has to be done by Friday, or we can't order until
So make sure that
2024.
that's part of the minutes, then we're good.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there any final public comments before we consider a motion to adjourn? You have anything, Martha? No?
Bless you all.
Thank you.
Motion to please adjourn.
Okay, motion by Mr. Levenheim to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Yes, you do. I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Barrett. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned
You get it 9.
at 8, yes, we're just
I got it
at
59,
9 o'clock PM. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
I will end our Zoom meeting.
Thank you. Thanks.
Nice to meet you. Maybe under.